going to an election. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a live, but I still reinvest it. Fear how I feel, then you feel that's a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down, hold it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got your watch list coming in on August 24, 2021, and the stock market has just changed its mind about Jerome Powell. And I got 3 stacks that I'm looking at coming into the rest of the week, but today was a big surpriser for a lot of people. If you remember how last week was, it was looking a little bit scary, but to open up and hit a new record high on the S&P 500, that was a little bit surprising, but it seems like a lot of analysts are now picking up on this idea that Jackson Hole may not reveal as much as a lot of people are hoping. So this created a very interesting dynamic today. If you even looked across the world, it was an overall just very solid day in general. You can see here across the map, even if you look at every single index, everybody did very good, especially with China. We do need to talk about this. They had some changes, but today really did offer a sense of relief considering what we saw last week. So now a lot of ideas are changing. We got a couple of economic data points today, and it factors into the situation. And then we still got a couple political things on the table with the budget, infrastructure, taxes, and all of that. So we got a lot to talk about. I'm going to go over what happened in the market today, all of the news and events, the plays that we made today. We actually made quite a few, and then the plays that I have for the rest of the week. So let us not delay. You guys know what you need to do. Drop your thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you don't know, we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open. It's the first link in the description, and it is pinned in the comments. We better see you there in the morning. It's free 99. It costs you nothing to join. YouTube.com/TheStockMarket. You can post the plays, see the plays, watch the watch list come to life, and yes, if you can actually answer the question, I'm really curious, is now a good time to buy Alibaba stock? If you know the answer, then yeah, we're the place to be. And the most important thing you need to do, post or watch below. Let us know what you're looking at. Got any plays, comments, remixes, anything? Post them below and source that info. Shout out to Chad, baby. So, right off the bat, the world took a giant step back today as we get ready for Jackson Hole. That is the Jackson Hole Symposium. That is where all of the central bankers meet, and we have all been waiting for this leading up to this week. It is not canceled. Some people were asking. They are just doing it virtually, but the full schedule is going to be released on Thursday night. It is going to go into the weekend, but now the sentiment has been shifting. I've been talking about this since last week. I'm glad to see a lot of people kind of get on board with this idea, but some analysts and market commentators, they're starting to look at this, and even some of the banks, and they're saying that, well, this may not produce the event that the market is looking for. How that'll factor into the trade, we will see, but despite all of what we've been getting with the tapering, the data, the back and forth, even Afghan and China situation, that has definitely cooled off, and to open the week with this strong, it is a very, very good sign. But now, coming to your first pretty picture here, the data that we got today, and as we get more data this week, it could kind of support this idea that nothing is really going to come from Jackson Hole, or there will be no new revelation of tapering and pulling back some of the stimulus, because what we got here today, these are the manufacturing and service PMIs, but both of them declined, and they're now at an 8-month low. And now what people are saying is, well, the data is starting to come through, and now it's showing that we are not growing at this fast pace that was leaving people worried about inflation, and that trend is kind of turning. This type of data does not really support the idea that you could claim a victory for success in terms of recovery and then begin the tapering process. So the data is definitely going to be key to watch, but I do think managing expectations and the fact that the market is kind of chilling off from this idea that Powell is going to release some sort of bombshell, I think that could end up being good, but we will see. And then what we saw this morning, China really did help ease some of the pressure today. They did not have any more escalation. We talked about this one yesterday, and we said if China is able to kind of be good this week and we get some of that bounce, that could be good. The Afghan situation is still kind of boiling. It's not as worse as what we saw last weekend. Even though the situation is getting worse, it's kind of one of those situations where you haven't seen another OMG moment, more or less, and it it has not factored into the market just yet like we talked about from the beginning, but commodities, oil, they all did good today, and I think part of that had to do with what we saw with the China stocks, because remember, at the end of last week, that is when they entered a bear market on some of their indexes, so that was key, but it really depends on how it plays for the rest of the week. We do need to keep our eye out for it, and then this is another chart to look at, and here is the phrase you want to look out for. It is quote-unquote common prosperity, and this is the amount of times that President Xi has mentioned it in any of his speeches, and you can see here, he started to talk a lot about it in 2020, but so far on this year, it has pretty much more than tripled at that level, so this has been the basis or the campaign slogan for going about a lot of this antitrust stuff. So if we hear anything along these lines, if you get any hints or even Chinese media talking about this, this goes hand in hand with China escalation, because this is the front which they're justifying a lot of the actions that they are doing. So definitely keep your eye out on China. We got to watch out for Jackson Hole and Powell and anything leading up to that. But now finally, Bitcoin is at a key range, and I've talked about kind of XLF as one of these financial plays for Jackson Hole, but the fact that it's making these moves leading into such an important week, I do not think it is a coincidence. And here's your other chart. I'm not too sure what technical this is, but a lot of people have outlined this trading range, or specifically one analyst, and they're saying, depending on how it plays here, usually when it breaks out of this range, it usually leads to some sort of pullback. So depending on how this week goes with Jackson Hole, we might get a move here. But then a lot of people are talking now, as long as Bitcoin could stay above its 200-day moving average, which I believe is like 45,800, we may see another interesting move here, but that will keep the trend and bullishness alive. But like I'm saying, ironically enough, you're getting a big Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto move leading into Powell, decisions to taper, all of that, inflation, you know what I'm saying? So I am definitely going to be keeping my eye out for this week. Now, coming into the company news and events, this one was the big take of the day, but Pfizer has gotten their vaccine approval. We talked about this yesterday on the watch list, and they wasted no time. Within 4 minutes of the market opening, the approval came in from the FDA. The vaccine stocks liked it a lot, and then Biden gave his speech. He said this is like the time to go get it now. If anything, there has been a big portion of society that has been on the fence about it, and now this FDA approval is what a lot of people were waiting for. But even then, Biden did make another push for corporations to mandate its use and kind of step up in that front for requiring the vaccine. So that one was interesting. The second one, and this one, don't let it get overlooked, especially with what we got going on. But Pelosi, she called for a closed-door meeting with Democrats. She sent a letter out earlier today, or I believe yesterday, but now she wants them to meet to follow along with her two-track approach. But now there is some problems within the party. Given that they have the tools for budget reconciliation and all of that, they don't need Republican support, but now there are factions forming within the Democratic Party about what they agree to and not, and some of them, they want the infrastructure bill signed before handling everything else, whereas Pelosi, she wants to get the budget and the voting bill done first and then hash out the infrastructure bill. So I believe the number is 4 people. 4 Democrats is all they could afford to lose. Essentially, if they can't get those 4 Democrats on board to agree with everything unanimously, then it could put a lot of these funding deals in jeopardy, as well as the information and just overall hashing out of the data from everything from taxes, who's going to get their taxes raised, how it's going to work, and all of that. So we talked about that a little bit today. It is definitely important, and I would keep an eye on that. And then you could even tie it into the debt ceiling. So there was that. Then this one was very interesting this morning. Visa buys an NFT. They bought CryptoPunk number 7610, and they purchased it for $150,000. And they said that they wanted to signal their support for the people involved in the NFT market. I thought that one was really, really cool. Kind of random, but they did say that they believe in NFTs' roles in the future with commerce and everything else, and just in general as a support for crypto. So that one was really cool. Then this piece of news, I didn't think about it till after hours. It could have added to some of the hype we saw here with Uber. Uber dropped after that news with the judges we talked about yesterday, but it had a nice bounce, and then pretty much later in the day, Didi came out with news that they are putting their European expansion on hold, just given the recent concerns with privacy data and all that with the Chinese government. So that one is interesting, and like I'm saying, it benefited Uber possibly just because they would have been able to compete with Uber in the UK market. So that one was cool. Then this sent the stock up like 2.5% throughout the day, but they announced that they're done doubling their Lightning production target on strong demand. They are now expecting more than 80,000 units by the end of 2024. And then finally, Facebook said that they are retooling their messaging service and they're adding voice calling to just the main app. And now where this gets interesting, it didn't really move the stock too much, but it ties into antitrust. And now some people are arguing that Facebook is just intertwining its services in such a way that it would make it impossible to break the company up in the future. So wonder how that's going to tie in. But these were the main company events today. Despite the move that we saw today, there really wasn't that much news. You did get a couple of earnings. You are going to get a lot of China stocks reporting this week. But all in all, we do know what our focus is, and that is going to be Powell and really what he has to say. So I hope you're ready. But that is pretty much it. So let us get into the plays. So right off the bat, I got 3 different stocks that I'm looking at coming in today. I made 2 out of 3. The last one I'm going to be looking at coming in tomorrow, but the first one is going to be Pfizer. I think either this week or next week. I did grab a next week play, so it is pretty much a lotto. I will say that just because all the premiums were up and then it was moving a lot, but I am expecting volatility given the approval. A lot of the data has came out, how much they've made. You've seen all the other vaccine stocks. It has overall been good, and there were some weird rumors about market makers and the shares deliverable based on some of the options activity that are in the money. It was very interesting, so I said, hey, I'll go with the lotto. I threw $100 on it, and I decided to go with the next week $59 calls, and that is a huge jump on Pfizer. But even if you look at the Pfizer options, it is absolutely insane. But I grabbed 5 of these for 22 cents, spent about $100 and something, 110. If I can make it free, I will do that, and we'll see where it goes. But anything even related to the vaccine stocks, I even got Vaxart as a runner-up because that's one of the cheaper ones. I would definitely keep your eye on that, but I am expecting volatility just given the situation, the news, and now what you got going on with that option chain. So watch them. Then for the second play, Roblox, I decided to double down today. They got strong mentions. They were mentioned on CNBC. Some lady went on. She said she loves it. She said she is acquiring in the $80 level. Stock was able to move, but it even did have some negative articles today. There was a Seeking Alpha article, and I think another one talking about how Roblox isn't paying their developers as much or something along that lines. There was reports last week of some of the game worlds being very non-child friendly, so there's been a lot of negativity in a weird way. There's kind of been these shots at the stock, and even then they did miss on one of their booking metrics with earnings, but it seems like the metaverse expansion has been the real driving force following their earnings call. They did focus on that, and it seems that that is what people are really putting it on. And the biggest answer, the biggest reason people are saying with Roblox as to why they're buying it is simply it is more than just a video game, and people are starting to see how it could expand into different areas and kind of has its foot in the door in a lot of other industries that are already getting popular. So I'll go over the play that we made, but it really just depends on momentum activity in general. If it breaks that $86 level and then 94, those are 2 key levels from where we're at here. That's when it starts to get crazy, but the premiums are still a little bit weird and they haven't gone up too much. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. If you remember, I grabbed that September 15th play. Even after today's move, they really just didn't move at all. They have a little bit less time, and they were even down a little bit more. So you could see after all of today's move, the volatility, everything else, it went down $2.50. But the play that I made today, I grabbed the October 115 calls, same play as the Septembers, just with more time. But then this time, I spent more money and bought more contracts. I spent about $700, so kind of big. They went up 14%, I think like 20% max throughout the day, but the premiums just didn't really go crazy. So depending on how it reacts at those levels, I think that is going to be very, very key, and that is going to be the second play. And then finally, coming into the third play, Walmart. I really liked the report they had last week. We had that one free contract. I said I've been watching it, but I just think this could be a delayed sleeper here this week. Obviously, we got economic data in Powell, so depending on how that plays out, that will either open or close the door. But all of the premiums leading out to September, especially the out-the-money ones, those are now down about 45% from the earnings. So if it does get momentum, if you do get strength in the Dow, I think Walmart could be a really, really good sleeper play. So we'll see what happens. But as far as everything else, I did make a couple of plays today, and one of them was on Nvidia. We talked about that play yesterday, and I did decide to take some of the profits. So if you remember, we got this one. I spent $3.50 for two of them, the 227 call in October. I sold one this morning for $7, so I spent $700 for two, sold one for $700, got my money back, and now I have one contract left. It's worth about $800-900, and best of all, it's like, what, $7 out the money, and we have about 2 months of time on it. So I think this one could be a very interesting one. Definitely going to be watching that. Then the second play that I made today, I sold out of those Babas completely. So if you remember, I had those puts for a while. We bought these at like $2. I sold the other ones at $6 last week. I had 3 more remaining. I was able to sell 3 pretty much right at the bottom today. Got $11.25. I think the contracts are now down to $8.05 or so. So that saved a pretty decent amount. Got back $3,300. That was a nice play. Even on the remaining contracts, $600 into $3,300. I like it a lot, but I talked about it today. Some people didn't really like it. Some people are waiting to buy the dip, but I'm thinking you're going to get another one of these moments here where it hits that bottom, kind of bounces up, gets some footing here, but then I'm going to look to roll over those contracts and add to it, but I'm not going to put down the whole amount of money. So it worked out pretty decent today. We maximized the put profits. We'll see how it plays out there, but I'm definitely still keeping my eyes on all these China stocks, and I am not trying to buy the dip on any of them, but it doesn't mean that there won't be trading opportunities. That is your job to be careful, okay? Just be careful, and none of this is a recommendation. I'm just trying to show me risk and lose all my financial no purpose, only thing every day. But those were the only other plays. As far as everything else, I'm going to be watching Uber. It bounced heavy after that news today, and again, I think that DD stuff factored into it. That would have been nice to grab. Then watch Airbnb. I'm really liking them. Again, I gave that explanation on the watch list yesterday, and at that point, I said, well, it's time to stop playing around. I think I should just get it. No need to wait, and I do want a bigger position, and I am going to be getting another deposit here in a week. We waited very, very well this month, so it is offered a decent amount of timing there, but now I did add this to the long term again. So we still had a little bit remaining. I put 5 shares on the big account at 146.23. Then I got 2 shares on the small account at 146.21. That brings the big account total to 45 shares, and then I believe I have 10 shares now on the small account. So not too bad, and going little by little to build it up, but I really like them. Booking did bounce off the bottom, but the travel stocks were a little bit weird, so watch them. Watch Vaxart, like I said. That's related to the vaccine and everything else. Then KWeb, they bounced good. Thankfully, we were able to make those September plays free, and then now we got this sell out of the Baba puts at the bottom, so now what we got to do is just wait to kind of reload and get another play if we do believe that it is going to continue to accelerate or that they're going to escalate. But the interesting thing about it, those KWebs are still positive, believe it or not. So they got clapped today. Remember, you can see right here, we bought 10 of them for $360. They shot up 100%. I sold 5 for $350, got all my money back. So now I still have that exposure, and then we move from there, and now we're getting to see how the market is pricing them. And don't forget that analogy, buying insurance when the house is on fire. That has essentially been the game that we've been playing. So watch out for that. That is the other one here on this chart, with not the third play. I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah, you get it. But watch them. Watch DoorDash. They closed red today still. I thought they were going to do a little bit worse. I'm kind of still watching them for the downside, so watch them. Watch JD. They had a nice bounce. They had earnings, and their earnings were good. So depending on how this moves too, could create another premium play, but they do have some exposure to the vaccine, believe it or not. They have some medical units, which I thought was interesting. So watch out for that. Watch Coinbase. It kind of went up today, then it gave it back up. Bitcoin was very, very solid this morning, but then it ended up giving up. So they're kind of in the middle there. Really, I don't get hyped at it unless it gets back to 280. So we may have to wait. This stock kind of reminds me of Beyond Meat. I don't know how long you've been watching the channel. If you have, you kind of know what I'm talking about. We've seen it at this level when it first came out, and that's really what it reminds me of. So it's not going to move until it does, but when it does, it will go crazy. So watch out for that. Walmart, like we said. Then Taiwan Semiconductor, Mr. Poll brought this one up, and I love this one because it kind of puts them in a weird mix. Are they a China company or not? You shouldn't ask Xi Jinping that question. It's hard to say, but in the midst of everything going on, you could kind of see see how they've been in the middle and kind of pinned here. I think it creates an opportunity. I'm definitely going to watch for them. Anything could happen. Even a straddle both ways for the next year or 2 years may even be a decent play, believe it or not. So watch out for that. And then finally, Zoom, only keeping a watch on them given that Facebook news. It kind of had a little effect, but you're watching a little bit of back and forth with the Delta and everything else, and now the vaccine. So we will watch how they play out. And finally, the dollar took its first dip today. What you want to watch for here, does it keep us in a range, or do you get dollar velocity? Essentially, if the dollar really starts selling off, the market will not respond how it did today. So if it does start to kind of break down here, usually that correlates with everything moving with the dollar, because remember, everything moved with the dollar on the way up. So that's kind of the key there. But it's a good relief rally. You saw it all with commodities. They had a big bounce today too. Again, a lot of things were on really, really big streaks. So this one wasn't too surprising. It puts us still at that elevated level. And again, I think it brings us right below that 25 point that we were watching at. Again, it fell below there. So depending on where that goes, velocity is still the answer. Then TLT, they actually chilled out a little today, but not too much. You can kind of see how it's holding. So if you really look at it now, bonds and the dollar are kind of matching up. But I said it today, Jackson Hole is probably going to give us the kicker and confirm the move or kind of help revert it, because in the midst of everything, they all made their moves leading up to this week, and that's why it's so important. So I hope you're ready. But that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure hydrate, healthy, ready to go. Make sure post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shine. I need you to remember it's by higher design, baby. But the code loves you. I love you. I'm gonna see you in the morning. Let's go.